All right, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and talk about and something that I'm very passionate about is how we can take social media and digital literacy and incorporate it into the classroom experience. And a lot of people are surprised that that isn't actually happening. During the break, I had a chance to talk to Audrey, who is a high school student here locally, and she reaffirmed that the same thing is kind of happening, that they're not getting these opportunities to connect. So I teach, I'm fortunate that I've been doing it long enough that I got invited to teach social media at Syracuse University and Newhouse School. So there's not many social media professors out there, and people are like, you teach social media? What's that about? And so a lot of questions come from that, including, you know, how did you get into social media? And maybe you have had that question too, other people ask you. So one of the things that was interesting in the way that I got into it and really has sort of influenced my whole approach to it, it was a very pragmatic decision. I was teaching in a business college and I had students on a study abroad program. We were able to get some scholarships for them to go on the study abroad program. And the sponsors of the scholarship said, hey, we're going to give you this money to go abroad and study, but we want to know what you're up to, what you're doing with our money. So we need you to blog while you're at the study abroad program. So I had to learn how to blog so I could teach the students and help them do that so they could earn their scholarship money and report back. What we discovered, and you guys are very familiar with, is once we started blogging, the alumni from the university took notice. The other friends and family of the students were able to see what they were up to. The industry professionals that we were connecting with during the study abroad program, we were able to connect with them. Students were getting job offers and internship opportunities. So we were really excited. Came back to campus and said, wow, we should do this in more classes, integrate blogging. And the following year we added Twitter while we were on the study abroad program for live tweeting like some of you are doing. And we're very excited, the students on it. And so when we started to try to talk about that in school, it's like, well, no, you can't do that in class. You can't bring your phones to class. You can't bring your laptops. You can't have your tablet out. You have to turn the technology off and listen, right? So the measure of how successful you were was, right, in the traditional model is, are you looking at me? That's the only way I can tell. If you're looking on your phone, you're obviously playing Angry Birds or Facebooking your friends. And that was sort of the challenge. So, one of the things I want to do is make a little bit of a case is, we kind of know this, right? Here in this room, you guys are early adopters and innovators yourselves. We don't get our news like this anymore. A recent Pew Internet Life Study from this year, 70% of people on Facebook are getting their news links from their friends and families, not journalists and newspapers directly, right? So social media is a way that content's being delivered. Why aren't we incorporating them in our class? People used to sit around and watch the radio or watch television like this very intently. And now, again, from that same Pew study, 50% of all people are using mobile while they're watching television. They're multitasking. If you have a smartphone, it goes up to in the neighborhood of 80%. And if you're looking at 18 to 24-year-olds, more than 80% are multitasking while they're doing things like watching television. So this new, digital world that we're in, this new reality, we have to recognize these changes and adapt. So media companies are doing that, journalists are having to do this. But what about the classroom? How have we changed the classroom? And with a lot of these kind of conversations, people are surprised to know that the classroom for 100 years ago is still very representative of what most of the classroom experiences are, where students are told to turn off all their technology, not use any of these things for engaging and interacting, and communicating and sharing content. So, these are ways that I want to share with you, ideas worth implementing either in your organizations, with your own children's school, your own school, talking to teachers, administrators, trying to get them to understand that there's more opportunities and benefits using social media for learning and education than there are negatives with it. So that's one of the points that I want to make. So one of the realities that we also are addressing that is a common theme throughout these, and Charlie talked about this as well, is this rapid pace of change. One of the challenges for higher education is that they're trying to keep up with this rapid pace of change and prepare students for a world that may not exist the way it does today. With even as recently as in 5 years, they say the skills that they're learning today will be outdated. A study just came out that said, hey, we're not trying to hire you based on what you're learning today. We're trying to understand if you can be adaptive and agile and learn in a continuous way so you can continually adapt and be ready for all the changing that's going on. So Brian Solis, who is at Altimeter, he wrote The End of Business as Usual, and he talks about this digital Darwinism. And we'll kind of talk about the speed of change a little bit. And it seems very self-evident if you look at it from the outside, but if you look internally within the classroom, they're not recognizing this change. So it's not integrated into the learning experience. It's not integrated in how students are able to connect with each other, connect with the teacher, connect with the administrators. And so I think that is a very serious problem. So on one hand, though, I like this quote. A friend of mine, Stefan Olander, VP of Digital Sport at Nike, they have this saying there at Nike, nothing has changed, everything is different. And what they mean is, if you know the history of Nike, they started out, selling shoes out of the back of a van to runners. He used his own waffle iron to create them, the new waffle traction on it, and he would go out and speak to all of his customers and talk to them. So Nike still does that, right? They're still about talking, listening to the customers, but the way that they do that is very different with all the new technologies, right? The sensors that they have in their shoes for collecting data and helping their customers, social media that allows them to engage regularly and get that feedback. But at the core of it, it's connections to people, to other humans, and conversation, and sharing, and learning. So I think this is very appropriate for this discussion on social media and education. So the other problem that's going on, nothing has changed, everything is different, is also the speed of change that we're trying to tackle. We talked earlier about that, what we're trying to do to grapple this. So a couple of facts around this. This was from South by Southwest last spring in one of the panels, and someone from IBM shared this fact, and it seems pretty unbelievable that there's so much data created that 90% of it has been created in the last 2 years. So how do you keep up when that level of information is, bombarding us every day? Another study just came out recently, was very fascinating. 83% of people cannot find the information that they saved 72 hours ago. So the information that's pouring into us every day has a 72-hour shelf life, and it's very difficult, even the stuff we're saving on purpose, to even go back and find it, and where it is very easily, right? We have to really work at it. Unless you're very organized and highly skilled, you might be very good at that. So that's becoming an issue. It's like, how do you do that? So one of the things about social media and integrating into the education and into the classroom is it allows you to keep up with this rapid pace of change. So if you're not using those tools, right, you're the kind of the kid on the bicycle delivering the newspaper into the classroom, right? Or expecting students to sit in the classroom and stare at the radio. That doesn't really work that way, right? There's much more engagement. I look out in the audience and I see computers and phones glowing and all that. We need to create that environment, that engagement for the students in the classrooms. There's also a good business reason why we need to do this. We know that the economy has been struggling over the years, but there's a lot of inefficiencies in how we're communicating. A recent McKinsey study said that by converting to social communications, using the digital technologies to improve our communications, that there's up to a $1.3 trillion efficiency in the economy. If organizations, not just schools, but companies themselves, change how they share information with each other and how they interact with their teams, that could be released in the economy. So what that means is there's this pent-up demand of skills that companies are looking for, and guess what? The students aren't getting it in K through 12. They come into college, they're likely not getting it in college, and then they go to companies who are frustrated because they don't have the digital skill set, the digital literacy and the social media skills, because nobody ever talked to them about how to use it in any professional way, not just to talk to their friends socially or to connect with their parents on social media, but to actually use it as a professional tool, a communication collaboration tool. So this is, I think, an important factor in trying to incorporate this in. Recent Manpower study looked at it just in the previous month, 13,000 jobs out there have digital and social media skills as a requirement skill set, right? So it may be, hey, it's an accounting job, but we also expect you to be good at social media to engage with our customers and our clients and engage, help connect with our other industry partners, whether it's business to business or to consumer. Well, at the same time, 50% of companies are having trouble filling those jobs because there's no trained people to fill those jobs. So that's the other reason. It makes good sense in terms of the enthusiasm, the passion around learning, and the engagement, and I'll share some stuff with you around what those models look like, but it's also good business sense. The students are getting jobs. The students are experiencing this in the classroom and know how to demonstrate these skill sets. So they're the ones who are going to go out there and get those opportunities. So that's really what I wanted to share with you in terms of that. This is a really interesting quote here. I would rather hire a high-level World of Warcraft player than an MBA from Harvard. Right? A lot of industries, Charlie talked about some of those industries that have been disrupted, and we can go across the board, whether it's the decrease in print journalism, or in the video, or in the travel industry now, where people have access to the information. The information is out there for the students. They don't need to exclusively wait for me to tell them about it. They can go out there and find it and interact with it. So, you know, higher education and other education is ripe for disruption. So if we don't lead this innovation and create these opportunities, outside opportunities will take care of that, whether that's startups or other things. So I think teachers and administrators really need to embrace it as well. This is sort of what the model looks like. So on the left is the sort of the old model, right? When we saw that old schoolroom that actually looks like a modern schoolroom, unfortunately, in most cases. So the old one is you had the teacher at the front of the room who is speaking to the students, you know, kind of a captive audience, and they're sitting there passively receiving the information on the topic or the knowledge. If you look at those red lines, those are the walls of the classroom. So if you look in this room right here, right, there's no windows in here. You know, you could think that we're just here talking to ourselves, or, you know, connecting in this small way, but at the same time, you guys are also sharing onto the hashtag for this event. People around the state of Michigan, people around the country, other people around the world can learn and share with what we're sharing in here. And you know, I'll share some examples of how that happens when you harness that. So the example on the right is what a socially enabled classroom looks like when you allow students to use social and digital technologies in the classroom to enhance the discussion and improve the communication and share content with them through these channels. What happens? So a couple things happen. You can see there's all kinds of ways to do that, whether it's computers, mobile phones, or tablets that you can use for it. Doesn't matter. I actually have a policy, if students don't show up with technology, I kick them out of the class because I expect them to use it to engage with each other, engage with the content, and myself as well. So the other thing that really happens when you start to do this is it also creates a active engagement between the students within the room. You know, when it's only the spoken word, when it's only talking, right, one person talks at a time, the other people have to, again, sit quietly and listen, and you have to hope that whoever is speaking is so engaging that the entire class is going to be riveted through the entire conversation and listen. It doesn't really work that way with all these other distractions. So by incorporating digital and social into it, the back channel allows things like you're doing in here, live note-taking during an event, using that hashtag and sharing, here's what we're learning, here's what we're sharing. You can go out and find other resources related to the content. So a lot of times when we're talking about examples, students hop onto the internet, go to Google, find the ad that we're talking about or the person that we're talking about in our example, and they bring that back into the class discussion, and now we can either look at a video or talk about that example that the student thought of that I didn't think of, but they brought in a better idea than I had, and now they're able to bring that and contribute. So the students become responsible for creating the content in the class. It's not driven solely by the teacher. It's also empowering and engaging these students to go out there and find examples, find content, and bring it in and use these social tools. So the activity engagement between the students happens. The other thing is you see these green the green lines here, right? Now all of a sudden the classroom is permeable. It's not just you isolated in your room, wherever that is, in a class, in your school or your college. You now can access the entire world. You can leave the room, travel the world, you can connect with other people. So when you open a classroom up that way, all of a sudden alum from your university or your school can come in and talk to the students during class and share their ideas or feedback or experience. It's an open classroom, right? Everybody can see it. It's transparent. It's not closed. In addition, industry and thought leaders can come into the conversation. They can be invited in specifically, or if they happen to be noticing these conversations going on and want to contribute to the discussion, they're welcome to come in too. So now, instead of waiting to learn from me or other teachers, they can learn from the smartest thinkers in the world every day, integrated into the classroom. So if you don't have this turned on, right, what are the limits of that? You have a closed room limited only to the group that's there in person, right? So we want to open this up and create those opportunities. The other thing is, you know, the room-based model, it's location and time specific. When you go into a social stream of connecting, and that could be through Twitter, it could be through Facebook, Google+, it could be curation tools that you use to organize content like Pinterest or Pearl Trees or Instagram if you're connecting photos. All the stuff that you're using is not being used in class, and you know that it works in your own lives. You know it works at events like this. Why aren't we doing this in the classroom? Why aren't we doing this for students? So it also allows the extension of it. So we know that after this event, you're going to continue to learn and continue to go out there into the community and share this information. Some of the relationships we've made today will be able to stay in touch with each other and continue the conversation. That also happens in the classroom, right? Instead of in a college class that might meet twice a week for an hour and 15 minutes, now all of a sudden you'll see students talking to each other throughout the rest of the week about the course content. And if they happen to run into something Saturday morning while they're doing something else related to the class, they can share that back into the class. So all of a sudden now you go from a couple hours a week to try to learn and engage with the content to a continuous conversation 7 days a week as people decide and are contributing to the conversation. The other real dynamic part is now you have measurement and data around the conversation. So I can tell you in a class like this who are the most active participants. What content are they sharing? How often are they doing it, right? So it's really interesting when the students get into this model, they actually become a little competitive. They, without even prompting by me, they start to run reports and say, hey, the top 3 contributors to the class in the last 24 hours are, you know, Sue, Steve, and John. And then they go, wow, I better get busy. I better, you know, increase my contributions to it. So when you think about that kind of dynamic, this isn't just for the classroom. This is for faculty. This is for administrators to also use this model in their own learning and research. If you're just doing it in the classroom, that's not sufficient. You have to incorporate it in how you go about your research as an academic. It's also important in organizations, how you interact and engage with your team and monitor this. So companies like Google and Radian6 and other ones are actually starting to measure the productivity and engagement of their employees and rewarding them. They're putting real money behind this. 25% of your bonus at Google is based on how well you engage using these digital and social tools with your team and with your coworkers. So if you're good at it, you're going to get some extra money for doing this. If you're bad at it, you don't get that money. You're also getting raises and jobs and increases. So this dynamic of being able to measure productivity and engagement is also part of that. Big Bird, we know about that meme this week. Some people were asked if this was a distraction, and you know, that was really my question. Was this a distraction to the debate? And I was surprised when the student said, you know what? I wasn't paying attention to the debate, but when the Big Bird incident came up, I turned the channel and started watching the debate. I did research to find out where the money was spent and how that was being allocated. And so I learned a lot from this. It wasn't a distraction. It was actually an engagement opportunity. So I say Big Bird is a gateway drug to politics. Another example, we were fortunate at Syracuse this past week to have the Dalai Lama come and speak. And that was, you know, great for the students on campus, but also during the course of the week and one of the events, from the students engaging with these tools, we were able to reach over 3 million people with 6 million impressions because we were sharing out the lessons being learned, the message. And so once you open up the class, you create those opportunities for engagement and bring the world into your classroom. So that's my passion, and that's what I'm hoping to give some ideas on how you might be able to do this with your own organizations, your own disciplines, your own teams. And this isn't necessarily in priority order, but once you turn these things on, you get a dynamic environment, you get real-time engagement, you get collaboration opportunities that aren't possible without these tools. Continuous learning and innovation can then take place, And the people that are very agile and learn how to do this, they're the ones who are going to get the best jobs. And again, you know, try it. It's sort of my encouragement. Give this a try and see what happens. Encourage people that you know to try it in the college classroom, in the K through 12 classroom, in your own organizations. And I'd love to hear what your results are with it. Thank you very much.